Let's provide a bit more context to what we're calling the parallel war in the occupied West Bank with Al Jazeera's senior political analyst Marwan Bishara, who's in London. So Marwan, historically, after the signing of the Oslo Accords back in the early 1990s, Palestinians said that they wanted to feel like they were moving towards the end of occupation. But occupation has only accelerated in recent years and turbocharged since October the 7th. Is there still a belief, do you think, that with a change of Israeli government, a two-state solution is possible? Or has Israel's war now radicalized a generation and potentially the next generation to come?
You know, the thing is that it's not just a question of prediction. The best way to know what's going to happen tomorrow is if you look at yesterday, not at today. And looking at yesterday, meaning some 6 decades, you will see that there's been a process of radicalization and extremism in Israel that has been exponentially growing nonstop. Even at a time when you had so-called moderate Israeli leader like in 1992 or 1999, in fact, the civilian occupation of the West Bank grew even more than under the more extreme Israeli leaders. So the occupation has been deepening, has been expanding nonstop since 1967. And that has led not just to the proliferation of hundreds of settlements and some 700,000 illegal settlers. It led to what you've been reporting on throughout the day, which is the settler violence. Meaning it's not only the army that is carrying the repression, it's those rogue settlers that are also now taking things into their hands and carrying the violence themselves. It is what, an Israeli guru some 50 years ago, Yeshayahu Leibovich, one of the most important figures in Israel's history, a philosopher, a chemist, and so on and so forth, predicted 50 years ago that if Israel continues to occupy Palestine, what's going to happen is that Israeli soldiers are going to turn to Israeli Nazi soldiers. That's coming from a religious, philosophical scholar in Israel, one of the most respected people in Israel. He predicted then, 50 years ago, if you continue to occupy the land that you invaded and occupied in 1967, you will become Nazis. You have to be careful. You have to withdraw sooner than later. Unfortunately, the Israeli government did not exactly take his advice on board. They've deepened the occupation and they hence became more violent, more extreme, more fanatical, and more fascist.
And Marwan, as you say, as we see this deepening of the occupation, it seems to be now that there is an inevitability that there will be a widening of the resistance. I mean, what does it mean for those who in the occupied West Bank have little choice, I suppose, but to continue fighting?
I tell you, the difference in the next stage, if there is a next stage of more of the same, will be that it's going to be very hard to distinguish anymore because of the proximity between illegal settlers and indigenous Palestinians or Palestinian inhabitants and illegal violent settlers. The maximum distance today between any Jewish settler or any Jew in Israel and any Palestinian, probably 6 miles. And that's getting reduced by the day. So the idea that Israel could fight the Palestinians with planes and tanks moving forward, that's going to be impossible. Because the integration of the two communities, the colonial and the colonialized, the settler and the original inhabitant, is going to be so close that it's going to be, quite primordial, quite primitive, whatever the next confrontation, the next war is. And it's going to be ugly because it will probably be more like a, civil war rather than a colonial war. And I don't think it's going to bode well for anyone because moving forward, nothing is going to be able to protect the settlers. Today, Israel moved them to Gaza. But I think in the West Bank, when Jews and Palestinians are so integrated in the same land, I think protecting Jews or protecting Palestinians for that matter is going to be impossible. But Israel is then moving to the next stage already. It's thinking of how to expel the Palestinians. The new people in the Israeli government are saying, don't worry about the integration, about the Palestinian being growing in number and demography and so on and so forth, because after occupying, after repressing, after settling illegally, the next best solution is going to be expelling the Palestinian. And that's what I think is already happening in Gaza, and that's what could happen in the West Bank moving forward.
Marwan, many thanks for guiding us through all of that. Al Jazeera's senior political analyst Marwan Bishara in London.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.